Welcome to the BitGo podcast. My name is Nick Payton, VP of Marketing at BitGo. I'd love to welcome Kenny Florian. He is a former three-time UFC title challenger, now is a broadcast host, does numerous shows, including BattleBots and a number of fighter broadcasts. And so really looking forward to this discussion about Bitcoin and how it can change the world. Kenny, welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah,
I know
absolutely,
we've been hanging out for a while now.
Yep.
I'm glad we finally get to talk in more formal settings.
100%, dude. Always good to see you.
Yeah, man, and Vegas, no less.
I
Too,
know,
so.
right?
We have to go to the pool later and hang out.
I know. What's outside look like, by the way?
I don't know. That's the thing about Vegas is like you're indoors all week, and then it's like the only sun I see is like out the window over here.
It's like a vampire start burning outside. Yeah,
And I know you spend a lot of time in Vegas because of your career right now, right?
Too much time in Vegas, man.
BattleBots
Yeah,
now in your broadcasting career.
Yeah, and I think 90% of my fights probably were in Vegas, which was cool because the energy's always nice, on fight week and things like that. So I have fond memories of that.
Was the Ultimate
But
Fighter in Vegas?
The Ultimate Fighter was in Vegas.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Okay.
I remember it was super exciting, coming here for the first several times, probably just because it's, like Disney for adults in a lot of ways. And it's just such an unusual place.
Disney World, right.
So,
sure.
coming here was always like, wow, this is crazy. I came from a small town. So to me, it's like, whoa. But then, now having BattleBots here and the Bitcoin conference, it's cool, man. It's always good to come back, and it always seems like it's a different city every time I come
It does
back.
actually, yeah. And what do you think of the Bitcoin conference this year so far compared to last year?
It's been great. It's been great. I think, I think it's maybe a little bit smaller than last year,
Bear
perhaps.
market vibes, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been good. I think it's interesting because I feel like it's never been better to be in Bitcoin. So I always feel like year after year, I feel like it's better, and maybe it's the optimist in me, but I really genuinely believe that. So I think there's a lot of great things happening in the space. And I think the price will reflect that later on this year. I'm sure we'll get into all of that.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it's great to just kind of see all these positive things happening, and it's always good to see a lot of the people that I've been seeing before in
Yeah.
previous conferences
Yeah.
and catching up with them. But it's a great vibe for sure.
It's really cool how Bitcoin, I think you'd agree, it's like that freedom money, which is maybe drew both of us to it a little bit.
Yes.
Obviously, with your background in fighting and everything. And so you and Ben Askren are sort of like the Bitcoin bastions from that world. And it's just so nice to see that. So I'd love for you to talk about like your early fighting career, how you got into that, like what
Yeah.
made you pick that, and then we can talk about as you got further along where the transition into Bitcoin came. So yeah, maybe just walk me through your early career.
Yeah. I'll try to keep it as, as short as possible. There's a lot to it. My gosh. But I fell in love with martial arts. I think I was highly influenced by the movies of the 80s and 90s.
Is that like the
And
Jean-Claude?
yeah, John
Yeah,
Claude
yeah.
Van Damme. Certainly, it was even after that. Like I used to watch like Kung Fu Theater for those that are old enough to know what that was on Saturday mornings. I would watch Kung Fu Theater on Saturdays with my brothers. I used to watch pro wrestling. So, coming up with a lot of like the, whether it's the movies, Rambo or Commando, like Chuck Norris movies, Bruce Lee movies, those things like highly influenced me. So I thought martial arts was the coolest thing. It's like, well, I understand I can't be a superhero, but maybe I can, develop into a fighter. And
Yeah.
I did martial arts as a kid. I got heavily into soccer and tennis, and being one of 6 kids, like my mom could only take me to so many things. So I had to kind of pick, and soccer ended up winning out. Tennis ended up winning out, and played that all through high school. Played soccer at Boston College.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Oh, cool.
and then it wasn't until in college that I heard about this thing called the UFC, the Ultimate Fighting Championship, where at the time it was more billed as style versus style. Like, let's get a karate guy and fight a boxing guy. Let's
Yep.
get a wrestling guy and fight a jiu-jitsu guy. Let's see what happens. Who is the best?
What's the best martial art?
What's the best martial art? And to me, that was kind of like a journey of truth, because I had always been told that's like the guy who hits the hardest is the guy who's the best fighter in the world. So the karate guys and the boxers, like you can't mess with those guys.
Yeah.
And there was this skinny Brazilian guy who came in and beat everybody, oftentimes without even hitting them. And I was like, whoa, this is crazy. I'm not the biggest guy. Maybe I can learn how to do that. So that kind of reignited my passion for martial arts. I started training. I trained with Hoist Gracie himself at a seminar and was absolutely obsessed. I just kind of went super hard into the jiu-jitsu world. And candidly, fighting was something that really scared the heck out of me. I used to have recurrent dreams of getting in fights, hitting someone, nothing happened, or just like feeling this overall sense of fear.
Yeah.
And I almost, I almost felt like if I didn't solve that issue, it was almost going to kill me.
Yeah. No, I get.
Like fear was chasing me down,
I
and
get
it
it.
was either I had to face it. So I was like, I have to have one fight. I need to kind of like at some point, beat my inner bitch somehow, if you will.
Beat the inner bitch. I love that.
and I wanted to have one fight. That's what it was about. So I competed in jiu-jitsu all over the country. Went to Brazil, competed in the world championships. Did really well for an American fighter at the time, and had one fight. One fight became two, became three, became four. Was asked to be a contestant on The Ultimate Fighter season 1, and ended up getting to the finals despite being like the smallest, least experienced guy there.
And you were dominating.
I was doing okay.
Yeah.
I got to the finals, and I was in a weight class that was 185 pounds.
You
So
were up. Yeah.
typically guys are cutting weight from like 215 pounds down to 185. I was like a chubby 180,
Yeah.
and so I was, definitely outsized and was lucky enough to get to the finals. I lost miserably in the final. And it was actually after that experience where I was like, okay, I need to make a go at this. I felt like I kind of beat myself. I felt like fear kind of took over at that point. I really didn't feel fear before that. And I wanted to solve that issue, solve that problem. And it became a lifelong problem of finding truth, looking at myself very honestly, and trying to turn those weaknesses into strengths. And that became a passion. So, ultimately, it's like, okay, your search for truth leads to other things. And what other things are true? What other things are you vulnerable at? So it allowed me to look at the world in a very different way.
Yeah.
Because I was looking at myself as honestly as possible, and wasn't always perfect at it, but I think it allowed me to kind of be curious, more than maybe if I was doing something else.
Wow, I love that you say the search for truth, because then when you come back to sidebar, I know we're going to talk about Bitcoin, but I'm Christian, but I'm on my own journey right now, which is a search of truth, because you always hear people say like, oh, faith, faith, faith. And I never understood what that meant. And
Yes.
now I realize what that meant was continue to search out truth. And so I'm on that journey now. But going back to Bitcoin, I feel like that's how we got to that as well, which is like, okay, what else is true that I've been told? Like for example, the fact that we need inflation,
Yes.
or that it's a
Right.
good thing,
Right.
or that like the money should be controlled by the government. And so I'm just curious. You had obviously a really long, successful UFC career. I think you were a 3-time title challenger.
Three-time title
Incredible.
challenger in 2 different weight classes. Yeah.
That's incredible,
yeah.
man. And so, like, were you in the UFC when you first discovered Bitcoin, or was it shortly thereafter? And I guess like, what sparked your interest in that originally?
Gosh, I wish I discovered it. I retired in 2011, the end of 2011.
Yep.
So I wish I did, but I guess we'll get into it later. I also wonder maybe I would have sold if I had bought Bitcoin at those prices. But
Yeah.
anyways, it wasn't until about like maybe Bitcoin was on my radar 2015, 2014, something like that. And I remember a buddy of mine was like, "Oh man, you would love Bitcoin. It's this, new money." And he explained it, very briefly to me, and said it just went down to like $70, man. You should go get a bunch. And I immediately kind of, I was like, that's interesting, but my mind was like, all right, how can I kind of tear apart this argument? Let me talk about reasons why I shouldn't buy it, right? And I was skeptical. I guess, yeah, a little kind of naturally skeptical, and she was like, well, the government's going to shut this down. There's no way, blah blah blah. And I dragged my feet, and it wasn't until 2016 that I kind of went down this crypto journey.
Yeah.
And I bought 2 cryptocurrencies. One was Bitcoin, one was another. And I was like,
Not
I'm
to
just
be
going to
named.
split this up. Yeah, I'm going to split this up.
Yeah,
I'm just
yeah.
going to buy half and half. And, both people, I'm getting arguments. I don't know what the heck's what, but I'm just going to, buy. And I think I checked it like maybe a few weeks, a month later, and I was like, I didn't buy that much. What the heck? Because I was looking at the dollar amount and I
Yeah.
was like, oh, it went up. It went up a lot. Wow, that's crazy. And I
Yeah,
was
yeah,
like,
yeah.
I'm gonna buy more. So I just kind of blindly
Yeah.
bought more Bitcoin. It went down at a certain point, and
Sure,
I was like,
sure.
okay, this ride might be coming to an end. So I actually started. That's when I actually really started educating myself when it started going down because I'm like, okay, well, should I just hold on to this?
Yeah.
Really started doing my due diligence and started educating myself the best that I could at the time. Sold that other cryptocurrency that I had and went all in on Bitcoin.
Yep.
And then repeatedly would buy and educate myself and kind of gain more conviction and education over time. I guess the reason I kind of was doing that was I remember I was in high school and my older brother had said that his buddy's dad was retired. And I was like, he's pretty young. Like he's in his 40s. He's already retired. He's like, yeah, he had stock in this company early on and he cashed out and he's
Yeah.
got a bunch of money now. He can do whatever he wants. I was like, wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, yeah.
That's awesome. Like that'd be pretty cool
Yeah.
to be able to do that. So, like that had an impact on me. It's like if you get in early on something, on some technology that is powerful,
Mhm.
and that is valuable, then you can do that. You can then kind of pick and choose what you want to do with your life. Like that's what it's about.
Yeah.
And that's how I saw Bitcoin. I was like, people still don't know about this thing. That you have this powerful technology that really can transform lives and in a variety of ways. And it's this like multifaceted tool. Maybe I can get on early in this and like invest and kind of go harder and harder into this investment. And so that's how I saw it. And it's been good and it's been tough seeing it go down at times and convincing like my wife and like
Of course.
listen, I know it's down. She's like, you had all this money, you could have cashed out. I was like, here's the thing, I actually want to buy more. And she's like, wait, what?
And
And
by the
then,
way, I already did buy
yeah,
more.
exactly. And then, trusting me, she was, gracious enough to allow me to, get more and then see that, oh wow, like, yeah, this thing continues to go up
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the lows get higher and higher and the highs get higher and
Zoom
higher.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's been good and it's allowed me now to kind of like pick and choose jobs and pick and choose what I want to do with my life. I can spend more time with my family. I can pursue, other interests like competitive shooting that I've been doing over the last year and stuff. So, it's been life changing for me. I've had the opportunity to orange pill a lot of people.
Platform and your freedom
Yeah,
network.
and people were like, "Oh, yeah, it's because, you're gonna benefit from the price." I'm like, "You guys understand, like, if some dude buys 2 Bitcoin or 100 Bitcoin, it's not gonna affect the price for me." I'm like, "Yay,
If that
I'm,
were the
like,
case,
wealthier now." Yeah.
yeah, if that were the case, strategies buys, we'd be at 1 billion by now.
Exactly. I'm like, "No, no." It's like, I have skin in the game.
Yeah.
I want you to experience the same thing I'm experiencing. I want you to realize how powerful the technology is, and if you don't buy, that's fine, but educate yourself on it, and, I've been lucky enough to orange pill a bunch of fighters and a lot of people in the MMA space, and
John Anik, I think you
John
said.
Anik,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, Rady Couture, and a bunch of other, bunch of big names. Maybe I should mention their name, maybe I shouldn't, but but it's been
Yeah.
cool to do that, and that they've seen the benefits of it as well. Yeah, it's good to share that.
That's
So
amazing. And I feel like to go back to the freedom aspect of it all, I feel like you did the path that most of us did, which is that you come into the crypto world and you're kind of like, all right, this is kind of like stocks, like
yeah,
diversify, et cetera. And then when you learn about the proof of work mechanism and hash rate and the decentralization, the government can't take it
right,
and they can't turn it off and they can't find Satoshi, even though, there's been a lot of guesses as to who that is.
yes,
They can't figure out who it is. And that's for the best, obviously. But to go back to, everyone comes into this industry and they treat it like stocks. Like, okay, like you've got your blue chips, which is like obviously Bitcoin. And then you've got these other like maybe beta bets that you want to make,
right,
diversify. And then as you dive into these things and you're like, oh, well, this is vaporware. This is nonsense.
right,
This is just founder tokens.
right,
And then you're like, wait, Bitcoin, who created that? Oh, they don't know.
right,
Oh, it's the proof of work mechanism. It solved the Byzantine generals problem. Censorship resistant. The network around the world controlled by individual nodes. Hash rate. So it's just like I have always felt that like the people who go on these journeys of self exploration, finding truth, like really care about freedom and just personal grit and like figuring things out for yourself. I feel like It's just if as long as you don't stop reading about it, you inevitably end up in the world of, like, Bitcoin is the only asset. Like, houses aren't even really assets if you think about it,
Right,
you know?
exactly. Well, yeah, I mean,
I mean, they are, but,
they're
you know.
assets, but I would say
Yeah.
it's similar. So if you want to make another, I guess, analogy to fighting, and again, this is how I see it anyway. It's like there's trade-offs.
Yeah.
So it's like if I'm going to come at you with wrestling, or going to come at you with striking, or going to come at you with jujitsu, they're all strong in and of itself, but they all have certain vulnerabilities and certain weaknesses and certain strengths. And I feel like a lot of assets are good. They can go up too, but there's also certain vulnerabilities. Now, the question is, what are the ones that have the least amount of vulnerabilities or attack vectors,
Mhm.
and what are the ones that are strongest? And how do we put value on those things?
Mhm.
For me, Bitcoin has more advantages and less negatives than any other asset out there,
Yeah.
right? Because it's like Bitcoin is extremely powerful in regards to offering someone the life of a sovereign individual. But it also means being responsible, right? Now you have the certain amount of responsibility. That scares some people.
Yep. Be your
Just
own bank.
being your own
Taking
bank.
self-custody.
Right,
Yeah, yeah.
and all just like maybe the journey itself scares a lot of people. It's like, "Oh, man, are you telling me I need to go and, figure out what Bitcoin is and, listen to all these podcasts and read these books?" Like, it's the same thing with, like, education on diet, or, it's like the food pyramid that we were fed. It's like, "Oh, wait a sec, that's not, like, really what, like,
Oh,
healthy
I'm so
eating
glad you
is?"
brought that up.
You
You
know what
know,
I mean?
we should be serving kids 8 to 11 8 to 11 servings of bread
Right,
every day. It's like,
right.
"What?"
Yeah, so it's
Yeah,
things
yeah.
that like that where, we've been told a lot of things, and you know what? You have to go on your own journey for that, and that
Mhm.
can be scary for people. And yeah, I think that Bitcoin is without a doubt the strongest asset you can have, especially in regards to like protection. Like no one can actually take it from you if you're protecting it in the right way.
That's right. Yep.
So in that regard, yeah, you're absolutely correct. But some people may see that as negatives. But I think that as we get more, I guess, educated technologically and about Bitcoin and all that stuff, and when you start comparing it to things that can be seized, frozen, all that stuff,
Yeah.
people are going to realize, wow, yeah, Bitcoin is actually the thing. And
Yep.
it takes a little while maybe to get to that point. The other thing I think, Nick, is like educating yourself on the fact that like the current system or our current knowledge is faulty and in some cases broken. If the system is broken, if you don't know the system is broken, then you don't see a need for Bitcoin. If you think you're healthy and you're, 500 pounds and you're like, no, this is how I eat every day. It's like, that's your
It's like,
normal.
"Okay."
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's wild. It's absolutely wild. And then I feel like once you adopt Bitcoin, if you've taken that journey to say give it the couple hundred hours of research that's needed, there's obviously condensed versions. Like Swan has that 1 hour course about Bitcoin, and
Yes.
BitGo has a bunch of really great articles on their stuff. But like, I think realistically, you probably need to give it a couple hundred hours to like really get in there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's like anything we're doing in life. You know what I mean? It's like nothing is for free here. Whether it's time, money, effort, whatever, you have to put that in if you want the fruit of that. Anything worth doing is going to require some effort. And maybe
Absolutely.
your financial freedom is worth a little bit of your time, you know?
Yeah, I think there's always that kind of like cyclical effect, or that thing of like what you put in is what you get out.
Yeah.
And there's no such thing as a free lunch, however you want to view it.
Yeah.
There's always going to be something that is taken in that process. It's
Yeah.
like, and people are kind of hesitant to give in order to get. And even like, we live in this world that, it's great because technology has given us so many things and have allowed for a lot of convenience in our lives, but we start to believe that that's normal.
Mhm.
It's like, oh, wait a sec, I hear this influencer talking about how I can be a millionaire tomorrow, or
Yeah.
all you got to do is this. And even in the martial arts world, like anytime I hear an instructor or a coach or some practitioner be like, all right, guys, I figured out martial arts. Here's all you got to do is this. I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about.
Exactly. Exactly.
There is no quick path to success. Like
Yeah.
it just doesn't exist. And I truly believe that. It's like, you know, slow growth for me is the best kind of growth. It's consistent. You don't take as many steps backwards, and the idea of like shortcuts and hacks, yes, there are some, but typically during that process, if you get a shortcut or if you get some kind of hack, something also is taken in that process, if that makes sense.
It
And I
does.
think that, you know, following the right path, I think, is more important than following the quickest path. I think efficiency is something that's different, but just trying to like find a hack, I think that's when you start getting into, the scammy type of world, the scammy
The
world.
quick buck, the quick
The quick
whatever.
buck, yeah,
Yeah.
and you can get like obsessed or like fall into that mindset. And I think it can be a cancer in a lot of ways.
That's a really good point. And I'll say, like, I've always felt that Bitcoiners, when you look at Bitcoiners' lives compared to maybe people that just don't care about it or whatever, maybe like kind of people who are more into the shit coins and stuff,
Yeah.
like look at their lives like zoomed out. Bitcoiners have really healthy families. They're having children. They're taking care of themselves. They're on like deep philosophical journeys. They seem to be extremely nice and welcoming people, but they also aren't, they're not weak people. They're
Right.
just, they have learned that like, hey, like I am capable of I'm capable of more here, and I'm going to change my entire life now that I have this freedom and I've gone on this spiritual truth journey. Now I'm going to get the rest of my life to get in line with my financial life if
Yeah.
Bitcoin is taking care of them. And then you see more businesses springing up. Like there's a self custody. You and I both believe in self custody, of
Yes.
course. But then there's businesses like sometimes if you've got millions of dollars of Bitcoin, keeping it like somewhere like is tough. And so
Yeah.
you've got banks now, like digital asset banks. You've got qualified custodians that can
Yes.
hold it for you. Yes, you have to pay for those services, but at the same time, if they're holding millions,
Less stress
billions,
or whatever. Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, which is just it's so nice to see and then the ETFs, the most successful ETFs ever were Bitcoin ETFs,
Mhm.
outpaced gold by leaps and bounds. I think in the first year of ETFs, it was the most successful ETF launch in the history of Wall Street. It's just so amazing to see that. And now I want my children. So we've talked about our kids. And
Yeah.
so like, my boys are 9, 7, and 4. And yes, they don't understand Bitcoin yet. I'm not like, I'm not sitting them down being like,
Sure.
do you understand what hash rate is? But like I talk to them about like, listen, money isn't real.
Yeah.
The only money that's real is Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And I mean, you talk about we came off the gold standard in 1971 and we haven't been back to the moon, actually landed since 1969. I mean, to me, that feels like a kind of a parallel that's not a random parallel. It's
Yeah.
like we came off hard money and now all of a sudden we stopped doing cool shit as a species. We basically just started handing money back and forth, inflating it, coming up with nonsense. And like the GDP is really, Elon Musk has said, like, the GDP is nonsense. It's literally just us handing money back and forth to each other. What are we actually building and creating here?
I
You know?
think that, if you're imagine you and I playing a game and we played it 100 times and come to find out I was rigging the game every single time.
Yeah.
And you were like, "Oh, man, I'm gonna win this one." And then you finding out that I was rigging the game the whole time, yet you still have to play me in that game. What's the point of even playing the game
Yeah.
anymore?
Yeah.
You're going to be more negative. You're going to, of course, gonna have some kind of animosity towards me. You're not gonna start to like me. And then that's gonna start to like bleed into your life. We're like, what's the point? I play Kenny in this game every day. This is ridiculous. You start seeing things negatively. A darker cloud starts to go up. So Bitcoin is that light. It brings optimism. It brings hope, and you start to see like, you know what? Like we can make the world a better place.
Mhm.
I'm outpacing inflation. It really is the current system really is a way to like rob our life energy from us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm certainly not the first person to come up with that analogy, but it's very similar. I explain it to fighters like this. Imagine you training 6 days a week, 2, 3 times a day, and every time you do that, let's say you missed half of that or 40% of that or 30% of your training, and you keep training your butt off to try to improve, but every single time I take like 2 or 3 days of that training away from you.
Yeah.
Like that's a horrible feeling.
Yeah, it's terrible.
And you're like, wait, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
And
You see it.
you
see
become
it.
cynical, you become negative, you become depressed, and it becomes this downward spiral where Bitcoin is the upward spiral,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I think it starts to bring you closer to faith, closer to God.
Yes.
And we live in this world that is, unfortunately, we need money to operate, but if the money is sick, if the money is broken, if the people that are running the show are both of those things as well, and naturally trickles down,
Mm-hmm.
then of course society is going to break down.
Totally. And the problem too is it's hard to ever blame a politician or a side truly because none of them are incentivized to fix this problem. It's
Exactly.
like, well, I'm in
It's
office
the
for
system.
4 years.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to be the person who causes the Great Depression. So why don't we print a little bit more money and keep this can rolling, and then the next guy or girl can figure this out.
Right.
You know?
And I think that, like, if we're being honest, I think a lot of people, we can all be corrupted.
Mm-hmm.
And that's in a lot of ways, many of us can be corrupted, especially if we don't have certain advantages, or if we don't have a lot of money, or if we don't have a lot of freedom, and they say, it's like, hey, you know what, we can give you this money, or if not, we can always replace you.
Yeah.
And 9 out of 10 of these people right now in this room would love to be in your spot. They'll take your spot. Do you want to be a millionaire, or do you want to stay in your spot, do the right thing? And lobbyists, the system itself, is corrupting everybody.
Yeah.
And if you know that, hey, if I'm in this spot, I either take advantage of this spot and get replaced with someone who's going to do that,
Mm-hmm.
or I'm just going to be a part of the system,
Yeah.
and I'm going to help myself. So it's really tough. So Bitcoin becomes that option to be like, you know what, I can opt out.
Yeah.
And still.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It
it's
absolutely makes sense.
It's like I can win this legally without cheating.
You can play by the rules,
right?
But they just need to be the fair rules for all.
Yes.
And you talked about how, you see like the negative cloud. And you know who I think about often is, I'm a old millennial, I'd say roughly.
Yeah.
And so I always think about Gen Z and my kids who are, I don't even know what's after Gen Z. Why? I don't know what the next one is, but whatever. AA.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. But like the point is like, it's the Gen Z and the future generations to come. Maybe this happens because we started having children. Tell me if you agree, but
Yeah.
they're the ones I'm really concerned about, because you see it. Like they're always out protesting something. They can't buy a house. Just there's more and more crime. There's more and more homelessness. You hear about homeless encampments 500 feet from schools, like in certain parts of the country. And yes, in certain parts of the country, it's great. I'm not trying to paint this like super negative thing, but
Sure.
but at the same time, like I do feel like we have disenfranchised and fully destroyed entire generations of kids that are just starting to like come into adulthood or will be like soon. And honestly, that scares me, because I think if anyone needs Bitcoin, it's them. But they're in the predictive markets and gambling. Like that's all the feedback loops that they're getting when they turn on the
100%.
TV or they're scrolling Instagram or whatever. And that really concerns me, honestly. And that's why my boys, like I said, like they don't understand everything, but they understand what Bitcoin is. They've done like lemonade stands, and like, I was like, you're only allowed to accept Bitcoin, and they like love it. So like, all right, Bitcoin lemonade stand. They're in jujitsu, kind of following your path a little bit.
I love it.
I'm gonna brag on this podcast for 1 second. My oldest entered his first jujitsu tournament like a month or two ago, and won. Out of 15 kids, I couldn't believe it. I was like,
wow.
Dude, it was the first time I've cried since my boys were born.
Yeah.
Because it had nothing, like, yes, there was like some ego, personal pride, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
But also it was to see him, I'm like getting emotional already, to see him like go through that grit, and just like, he had some tough matches, and he had to like fight and like, and
I love that.
I think you and I shared a brief message about it when it happened, because like I thought of you because of like that you kind of were like the jujitsu in the early days of the UFC when it was just becoming mainstream. I feel like you were like kind of one of the main jujitsu guys that was bringing that on at the time. And so anyway, we're on the mission of truth here.
Yeah, I think that's extremely special. And I was talking to someone the other day. I was like, if my daughter wins anything and she wins a match like coming up, I'm gonna cry like a baby.
Yeah.
But it's so important. I think you're looking at it in the right way in that, like, okay, yes, like, there's aspects of the future that are scary, no question about it, especially in this world where it's like, they're monitoring everything, privacy is being compromised, there's a lot of things to be concerned with. When there's chaos in the world, I think it's important that we also see it's like, okay, well, what's the opportunity? And if I'm seeing a culture that is kind of being weakened over time, then okay, what can I do that I can control that is gonna allow them to be strong? So if there's a culture that is like, weakening people, kids coming up, what can I do to make sure that, like, my kids don't fall victim to that? And that means putting them into things like martial arts and getting them to understand, the idea of delayed gratification and, working for money and understanding the vulnerabilities of it and, little by little understanding the system that they're in and to be curious
Yeah.
about the world,
Yeah.
and maybe the world isn't how you see it. And you don't wanna give them that negative viewpoint, but to be, curious and to figure things out for themselves,
Yeah.
and to kinda be like their own kind of like investigative journalists in a way, and
Yeah. It's
and
important.
I think that's way more important than anything else, and I think that if you do that, you'll set them up to win
Yeah.
in a lot of ways, right?
Yeah.
Like, they're gonna take advantage of other people not being that, and they'll stand out as individuals, as leaders, as business owners, or what have you, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah, the last comment on, like, the fight and Bitcoin parallel, and especially boys, I don't have any daughters. I wish I had one
Yeah.
daughter. Maybe my wife and I will think about a fourth at
Yeah.
some point. But, so I can only speak to raising boys, and I just feel like, especially men, I feel like men don't get the unconditional love in life, and that's just the way it is. I'm not
Yeah.
complaining about that, but
Sure.
men have to women too, of course, but, like, men in particular really need to take personal responsibility, and they need to deliver value to the world to be appreciated. I
Absolutely.
believe that.
Yeah.
And so, if I can at least make sure that my boys are, like, focusing on themselves, like, going on these truth journeys, learning about what real money is, and just taking personal responsibility, having some grit, learning jujitsu. Because even if, like, you never get in a real fight in your life, which I hope that never happens for them,
Right.
not like competitive, yes, but like real one, no. And
Exactly.
so it's like, if as long as they have the confidence that they can handle themselves, in my opinion, that translates into the confidence to go through life without fear. Because it's like, I know that I can protect myself. I have zero reason to be intimidated in a business environment. I
Right.
have zero reason to be intimidated by this new Bitcoin technology that I'm like, that's weird and a little scary, but let me read about it because I'm not scared. And so it really translates to the rest of your life. And I actually think it starts with, like, fighting. Bitcoin's the next leg, maybe, and then it just continues into the rest of your life. So yeah, so in general, I really believe that it starts with learning a martial art. Jiu-jitsu, it seems to be the perfect one at a young
Yeah.
age. It really feels like it starts with a martial art like jiu-jitsu. I think it's a natural one for young kids.
Yeah.
And then it goes into having self-confidence, independence, going on the truth journey. You find Bitcoin, you understand what that is, you gain some financial independence, some financial freedom. Not to say everyone can retire within 2 years of, but, like, you're on that path now.
Sure.
No longer fighting the inflation and everything like this,
Yes.
or the insider games that are played. And then the rest of your life, you start putting in your own family, you get in shape. All these things just translate. That's why I was so excited to talk to you, and why I was drawn to you when we first met, is because I'm really envious of, like, the journey that you went on, and I feel
Thank you.
like I think everybody needs to do that. Everyone needs to go on that journey. We have someone that works with us who, she's like a black belt in Taekwondo, and
No,
and now she's starting to get pretty heavy into Bitcoin. And so it's nice to see, like, even adults starting to take those journeys. And I'm really, really happy that you sat down with me. But just to wrap it up, I'd love to hear, what are you excited about in Bitcoin? Is it new products launching? Is it new technology? Is it nation state adoption? Like, I guess, what are you most excited about in the next few years here?
gosh, it's gonna sound, contradictory to, like, what I was saying in some ways, but I actually think it's a good thing, and in some ways, so long as it plays out the way that I hope it will. Yes, I think, first of all, there's a lot of things that are going to come up that I think are going to really benefit Bitcoin technologically as far as security and all that stuff, which I'm hopeful on. But I do think that when you're hearing about these stories about countries and states and things like that adopting Bitcoin, I see that as a good thing. And a lot of people in the space are like, oh no, like, these countries are getting into it. They're going to capture it. They're going to control it. It's like, no, the protocol is not going to change in that way. Like, so nothing changes. I can still send money. I can still receive money. Like, no one is going to control it. They may have a lot of it. That doesn't necessarily mean anything. And there's certain obviously like financial games you can play maybe with that, but it does not compromise the protocol or the network itself, right? So,
Yep. Yep.
but why I think that's a good thing is that they're going to see the benefits of it. If you want to change the world, you need to change the system. It's not just about like, again, anybody can be replaced.
Yes.
And the people that are in charge, I think that when they see that there's an escape valve, well, now those people don't have the incentives or the only option, which is to be compromised or to be corrupt.
Yep.
I think it gives them an exit. And I think that it opens up the beauty of Bitcoin to other people and maybe other leaders who actually do want to make a change.
Mhm.
It offers an option
Yeah. Yeah.
as opposed to the current system. So that to me is what I'm hopeful for.
I love it. I love the optimistic view.
More than
I'm
that,
with you.
does that make
Yeah,
sense? Because,
absolutely.
I think people are like, oh, well, if they get their grubby hands on it, then like, of course, and that may be the case,
Yeah.
but still, it doesn't affect my Bitcoin and how I can send it and receive it or leave with it or go to a different place or a different country or whatever it is. Like,
Yep.
nothing changes in that regard.
Even if they have nefarious intent,
Yeah.
it won't matter.
Right.
Because the code will not let them do it. And so it's like you have basically a couple choices. You can use it as a global settlement layer when, as you see trust eradicating throughout the world, not everyone wants to use USD for various political or economic reasons.
Yes.
Same thing, not everyone wants to use the yuan or whatever the currency is.
Yes.
Well, it just so happens, unfortunately, we're in this war right now, but it just so happens that the Strait of Hormuz is saying they're going to start to accept Bitcoin.
Right.
This is the beginning of what I believe to be the next tier jump.
I agree. And I think to go further, it's like, okay, well, now if the price goes up, right, as a result, well, you Bitcoiners that are out there saying you want to change the world and you want to see a different system, here's your opportunity, guys.
It's very rare you can do the right thing.
Here's your opportunity.
Exactly.
If you have this financial freedom, well, let's get to it. Let's change the world together now.
That's
so
right.
That's how I see it. So I hope that that's the case. I'm optimistic that that will be the case eventually. And I think it's really our strongest tool. And, navigating the world is not an easy thing, especially when you start to consider, these young, beautiful, innocent minds that we're trying to, get to grow up in all these things. And you're like, how do I give them the tools to be successful in life? That is our role as dads, as moms. And Bitcoin is one of the most powerful tools out there for whether you're a kid or an adult, like that's an extremely powerful tool in a lot of different ways. So that's what I'm hopeful for. Yeah, that's pretty
I'm
much
with
it.
you, man. You couldn't have said that better. It's a great way to put a bow on this. I couldn't be more excited. We need more people like you talking about this in various industries across the world. Not just the Wall Streeters. Like, it needs to be the everyday individuals that actually need this, that can change their lives. And so thank you so much for coming and sharing your story. And let's do it again, because I mean, I love talking to you.
Well, it's great talking to you, man. I mean, we've had a lot of these conversations off
Yeah.
camera, so
Of course.
might as well do it on camera. So I'll game anytime.
We'll bring the cameras down to the blackjack tables.
There you go,
And then
there you
just kidding.
Exactly.
Fiat games. We're not doing that. Anyway, no, thank you so much, Kenny. And
course, man.
it's always been a pleasure, man.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah.